further, JM, I'd like to see if anybody has a guest that they want to introduce or say hi to, or anybody who's just joined us for the first time, or the second or third or fourth, and you'd like to say hey.
Definitely. We would like to welcome anyone who has come here for the first time or brought in a friend. Please unmute and say hi. We would love to hear from you. Go ahead, Kautuk.
I would like to welcome Jake. So, Jake has joined us from Boston. We met Jake outside Northeastern. He goes to Northeastern University. He's a very bright student. He had very deep spiritual questions, so I invited him to join. And thank you, Jake, for joining, even though it is quite late there in Boston. If you
Yeah,
like to
thank
say,
thank thank you for the invite. As he said, my name is Jake. I'm a student at Northeastern. I'm only a freshman, so uh but just to reiterate what Katuk said, I had a lot of questions and I'm just trying to learn more and hopefully join you guys on this journey. So
Fantastic, Jake. Thanks a lot. It's an ongoing conversation that has no end, and I'm glad you're checking it out. Glad to have you here.
Yeah, welcome, Jake, and thanks, Kautuk, for the introduction. Anyone else here for the first time or coming back after a long time? Would love to welcome you back too. I, I think people are still dialing in, so maybe we can check in again after some time.
Very well, then. How about we not revert, but start with your first slide and just have a look. And I'll give a overview of what I intend to speak about tonight. And my hope is that we can make it a conversation. So if you have thoughts, questions, interjections of any kind, please feel free to raise your hand or just speak up, or you can type away in the chat box if that suits you better. So shapes. The idea of reshaping one's life is especially appealing to many people, including myself. The very fact that we can reshape our lives, since most of us are humans here. I think we're all humans. I don't see any pets or animals of any kind attending tonight. And that's indicative of what the Vedas, and I'll refer to them, they're the ancient wisdom literatures. They give a base of knowledge, especially for those who want to live a harmonious life in the world. And then there's a section of the Vedas that is especially meant for those who want to explore what's beyond the status quo of the material world. Those are called the Upanishads. Upanishads start to answer questions that humans naturally have and have had since a time immemorial. For instance, who am I? And how did I get here in the first place? And where am I going after I leave this place? An inevitability that seems to follow us wherever we go, no matter what age we are, etc. There are many different questions along those lines, and the Upanishads answer those questions. They also give us clear guidance about what's most valuable in life, which is helpful because there are so many options that can present themselves to us, and having a supporting voice that says, oh, it really is more important to work on yourself, and followed by a definition of what your self is. Are you a body? And the Bhagavad Gita, which is called the Gita Upanishad, it's also considered an Upanishad, says the body is a coat and a shirt. And if I take this shirt off, it'll have no form. And similarly, the body, when I, the conscious being, step out of the body, will have no locus standi in the world. It starts to disintegrate as soon as the living being steps out of it. It's a coat, in other words. And so the Gita Upanishad, Bhagavad Gita, gives us indication about how we can reshape our lives, speaks of it in many ways, and talks about what the benefits are of that. But my original premise is that human life is especially meant for discovering causality. Where did we come from? Where are we going? What is the self beyond the body? So how can the shapes help us? Well, I'll relate them to various aspects of the Gita Upanishad, the Bhagavad Gita, and some of the ways in which the ancient Vedic literatures encourage us to make spiritual advancement and present it in such a way that anyone can start from any position. You don't have to abandon your current position and repair to the mountains or the forest. Yasmin, good idea, right? So that there's not many mountains or caves to repair to anyway nowadays. Uh, we often find even those once remote places are now populated with many people on tour and some who live there and so forth. So the prescription for the current age is to stay in whatever situation you're in and discover yourself, whether you're a student or whether you're a professional, whether you're a monk. I see a monk on here tonight, Vijay Das. It hardly matters. As a Sanskrit admonition from the book Srimad Bhagavatam goes, Stane stita shrutikatam tanavan manobir. Stay in whatever position you're in now, but advance from there. So I'll do another call out. I should say shout out for anybody who's just joined for the first time or has a guest they'd like to introduce. Do you have another? Would you like to have another go around at that, another opportunity? Anyone here for the first time who'd like to say hi, or somebody who brought a guest? Very well, then. Let's go to the first slide. So the first one is the wedge, one of my favorites. And I coined a phrase around this some time ago, and hopefully I didn't plagiarize it. I didn't do an exhaustive search to find out whether I stole it or not. Maybe I heard it in a song. I doubt it. It's too sing-songy to be in a song. But it's that your pledge is your wedge. Okay, go back. I jumped forward too quickly. Three shapes. I promise three shapes that will reshape your life. One shape is the wedge. You see it on the bottom. Another is steps. What an ingenious invention, steps. Where would we be without them? I mean, can you imagine if you had a two-story house and you had to climb a rope every time to go to the second floor or try to jump up somehow? And the third shape is a circle, which is a universal symbol. People wear rings. Circles are in abundance everywhere we look at nature as well. So to the wedge. Your pledge is your wedge. It's easy to remember. First, about wedges. What a useful instrument. Name three wedges we use regularly. Hint, they could be kitchen tools. Just put them on the chat box. 3 wedges we use every day for 500. You can put it in the form of a question if you want. What is a knife? You should put it in the form of the question, or there's no points. What is a knife? Correct. 500 points. There's a big surf wave in San Diego called the Wedge. Okay, Adam, thank you. A doorstop, yes. Wait, aren't those useful doorstops? Subhadra submits key. Judges, I don't know who the judges are, but are you going to give that to her? What key? I don't know if a key is a wedge. Let's see. Who am I going to choose as judges? Namachintamani is a key, a wedge. And don't just try to be nice. Just say whether you think it is or not.
I think it's very powerful, the key, but I'm not sure if
See,
it's
now
a
you're
wedge.
trying to be nice. You're not a very good judge. Just be like brutal. It could be, right? Maybe. All right. Axe, definitely. And Subunga is waxing philosophical, says, what is an argument? That's pretty profound. So the shape itself has a small end and a large end. Screwdriver, how about that? It's got a little end that gets larger. One of the main features of a wedge is that it's small on one side and it gets progressively larger. That's definitely true with an axe. Syringe, kind of, yeah. It's a very small tip. Could be also compared to that. A wheel chock, yes. Keeps your car from sliding down the hill. I'm especially interested in those kinds of wedges, although we can extend this metaphor in many different directions that make an opening. An opening. Knives are good for that. If you have a tomato, you don't want to smash it. If you have a sharp knife, it opens it up. And an axe, of course, can open up what was a solid piece of wood into sections. And how does it do it? From the smallest end. So that's about wedges. And what about pledges? This is a profound aspect of the Vedas. They speak as if we are creating with our very voices. Has anybody ever heard the phrase abracadabra? Yeah? When I was a kid, that was something. There was also Alakazam, because there was a television show about magic and it was called Alakazam. But as kids, we learned this phrase, abracadabra. It actually has an etymology. It goes back to the Roman days. It literally means I create as I speak. Abracadabra, that's what it means. And in fact, it was used in amulets as part of medicinal cures and so forth. The implication of all that is, from those days, that we create with our speech. And there are obviously linguistic studies. And in linguistics, there's an analyzation of speech and what it does. For instance, there's what's called empowered speech. Think of a judge. Judge at the right time, in the right place, circumstances, can make an utterance. For instance, Jake gets $1 million award from a case. Yes, good, right? And you get $1 million. If somebody outside the 7-Eleven who's loitering says it, you may not. So it's circumstantial, but in linguistics, it's referred to as empowered speech. People in certain circumstances who say something, the speech is immediately effective. And the ancient Vedic literatures, much is spoken about when it comes to the power of the spoken word. There are what's called mantras. Mantras are algorithms, sound algorithms that have consequences. They open up a series, they begin a series of events and so forth. So when we make, according to the Bhagavad Gita, a sincere effort, especially when it's begun with a pledge, it acts as a wedge to get us started. So when we have a sense that I'd like to make advancement spiritually, and I'm talking in a completely universal, non-sectarian way. It's not about a religious process per se, but it's about the nature of humans who have this innate sense that there must be something more. At least many people do. There must be something more than what I'm involved in right now. Or if there is something more, please reveal it to me. And by a sincere utterance or inquiry, even if you're speaking into what you consider to be an unknown or speaking to an unknown entity, just the perception that there may be a higher power, let me enunciate my desire that I want to know the mysteries of life. I want to be more aligned. I want to be free from suffering. Many reasons that people take to a considered spiritual path. And by that utterance, there's a beginning. And that beginning can start in a very small way with a very small ask, or even if it's a big ask, but it opens up a practice for us. In many of the spiritual practices, including in Bhakti Yoga, there are opportunities for the practitioner to make a formal pledge. Sometimes when people come to a state in their practice where they feel that I would like to be officially on the record as being serious about my practice, and there's an opportunity for them to make a pledge and say, I will do the following every day. Now, you don't have to wait for an official opportunity. You can do that yourself. Again, that's one of the great joys of being a human being. You could wake up on any given morning and say, I'm going to improve my life. That's what makes life exciting for the most part. And so this commitment, this claim, this saying, I'm going to commit to a certain type of practice, even if it's very small, or as I'm saying here, in using the metaphor of wedge, especially if it's a small beginning, because the smaller the edge on the knife, the more easily it cuts. And so one may start with the simplest or the smallest commitment or pledge that I will do such and such. Perhaps the smaller, the better. About commitment and about these types of utterances, there is a well-known, I think, statement that is often attributed to Goethe, the German philosopher, but it wasn't actually spoken by Goethe. Somehow it got stuck to him. It's Goethe-esque, but the following statement actually came from William Hutchinson Murray, who was part of the first Himalayan expedition to go to Mount Everest. They didn't have a lot of high-tech stuff at that time. And here's what he said: until one is committed, I mean, you can imagine if you're going to drop everything for a while and try to climb the highest mountain in the world, it's going to take a little commitment, right? Yeah. He said, until one is committed, there is hesitancy, the chance to draw back. Concerning all acts of initiative and creation, there is one elementary truth, that ignorance of which kills countless ideas and splendid plans. That the moment one definitely commits oneself, pledge, then providence moves too. All sorts of things occur to help one that would never otherwise have occurred. A whole stream of events issues from the decision, raising in one's favor all manner of unforeseen incidents and meetings and material assistance, which no person could have dreamed would have come his way. Whatever you can do or dream you can do, begin it. Boldness has genius, power, and magic in it. Begin it now. To commitment, when there's that resolve, and one makes a pledge, however small, then there's an opening. And with some consistency, which I'll talk about in a moment, and continuing the metaphor, for instance, if you use a knife on a tomato, consistency might mean a little pressure, besides just opening it up. Let's call on the very thoughtful Subhanga Narasingha. I remember your questions from last time, so I'm eager to hear what you have this time.
Hello, Aish.
Hey, see you.
Prabhuji. Thank you. I had a question. Um, so with my recent exploration of the questions I get, what I've realized is whatever I've learned to be who I am hasn't been the right direction. And I have to unlearn a lot of things. And I am where I am today. Previously, just to give an example, I used to be very competitive and externally focused. But now I've realized that a lot of life is more internally focused in the development of something within me. And there is something more to letting go of desires with the repetition of mantras. And over a period of time, what I've realized is, what is more needed in life is to do the right thing. And to identify the right thing needs clarity. And that clarity comes with, I don't know. I don't know how. I don't know how to get that clarity. So in the context of the current discussion that we are having as to make a pledge to do something, I don't know what I should be doing. So how do I gain that clarity to know what is the right thing to do so that I can make the pledge in the right direction rather than making pledges about things that really don't matter?
What an important question, and thank you for giving it such helpful context before even asking it. Yes. Well, there are 3 points of reference that are key in advancing on the path, for instance, of Bhakti Yoga. They are called Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. And I'll give the definitions of these, but I'll start with Shastra. Shastra is a Sanskrit word, and it means the teachings that are considered to be self-revealing knowledge and that are meant to guide us in different parts of our lives and in life in general to know what the right things are to do. Now, there are a lot of Shastras. Someone may say, which ones should I read? And how, what if I come to a question in the Shastra? So then there's the concept of guru. Literally means heavy. And guru, it doesn't refer to a specific lineage of persons or something like that from birthright or anything. But what it does refer to is those who have gone deeply within Shastra and are well acquainted. A good example would be a lawyer knows her law books. If you go to a lawyer's office and there's no law books, you start wondering, hey, wait a minute, where'd you get your degree? And they say, well, from YouTube, then you might look for another one. But the idea is a lawyer knows the law. So a guru knows the Shastra. So if you're going to pursue a legal course, that is, if you have to take some legal action, it's best to consult with somebody who knows the law books so you don't make a mistake. So in reading Shastra, it doesn't mean you can't read the Shastra, but if you have questions, then you get guidance from somebody who's heavy with knowledge, and that's specifically what the word guru means. Its counterpart and the opposite means it is called laghu. Laghu means light, can be moved around easily by the world, by the mind. Guru means somebody who's rooted in Shastra and is very heavy with knowledge. And the third is called sadhu. So I hope it's not too many Sanskrit terms, but here we go. When we take up the practice of, for instance, bhakti yoga, that's called sadhana. And they all come from the same root. And a person who's practicing and doing sadhana, has a regular everyday practice, has made a pledge even, is called a sadhu. And then the third word in that group is called sadhya. Sadhya means the goal of the practice. For every goal that we pursue, there's an appropriate practice. So in bhakti, for instance, in bhakti yoga, there's a very specific delineation of practices, 9 in all. And one who's practicing those is aiming towards a goal, a sadhya. And so these are 3 points of reference that guide us, Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. The most important of the 3 is Shastra. But then to understand the Shastra and be able to apply it practically, we have Guru. And Sadhu, what's a sadhu? Somebody is showing by example how to do it. So if you have these 3 points, then it's it's imperative, say the Shastras themselves, to have these 3 points of reference in order to move forward. And just on a very practical daily level, I recommend reading Bhagavad Gita every day, because Bhagavad Gita basically, if I were to put it in a very straightforward way, is the intelligence of the Supreme. Many others have put it in that way. And reading it fortifies my intelligence. As an example, here I'm going to give a testimonial. Are you ready for me to testify? The first time I read Bhagavad Gita when I was in high school, I had a direct experience hearing the Bhagavad Gita and Krishna's description of the 3 modalities of the world called sattva, rajas, and tamas. Those are translated sometimes as goodness, passion, and ignorance. They are also called gunas. They tie us to certain habits and ways of thinking, ways of seeing the world. And they're all pervading in this world. And by reading the descriptions of the 3 modalities, I then found myself, rather than just interacting randomly with the world, I saw myself being more deliberate, having identified the results of connecting with any of these 3, and being very deliberate about staying in habits that are in goodness, staying away from environments that are in passion and ignorance and so forth. And I felt the result immediately, and that's what I mentioned at the beginning. We need knowledge and we need practice also. So the main knowledge for the Bhakti Yoga practitioner, or for anybody else, doesn't mean you have to be into Bhakti Yoga. It's a very straightforward guide to those who live in a body in the universe that gives us clarity about what to do, what's the right thing to do. And if you want more guidance, then you find gurus, those who are heavy with that knowledge, and you find those who are practicing it and have experience. And from these three, you can move forward. Thank you, Shubhanga Prabhu.
Yeah, Prabhuji.
A really nice question. What do you think about the wedge? Do you guys like wedges as much as I do, or do I just have a thing about wedges and I can't get over it? I think they're fantastic. I mean, it's such a simple concept, but it opens everything up. And when you think of it as how do I get going with what seems to be an overwhelming prospect? And then if I think of take the small end of the wedge, start with something that I could do. And I would say a good estimation of something that is small enough is when I might say to myself, oh, come on, Vaishesheka. That's too small. Anybody could do that. Then I think, okay, that's a good place to start because who knows when the mind's going to come rushing back and say, yeah, you can't do this. Start with the small end. That yes, it's so small, anybody could do it, even me. And therefore, let me start there. In the Bhagavad Gita, to quote the Bhagavad Gita, which I seem to be prone to do, Krishna says, Neha bikramanashosti pratyavayo navidite swalpamapyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat. Start with a small end, he said. The phraseology here is su alpam. Those who know Hindi or Sanskrit, I don't even know if it's in Bengali, alpam is probably there too, because it's closer to Sanskrit even than Hindi. And alpa means tiny. So if anybody's feeding you and you want less, you just say alpa, alpa, alpam. But su alpam, su is an intensifier. It means really small. So in the Gita, Krishna says those who do even the smallest act in bhakti get permanent benefit, never goes away, and it opens for you a new world. Life's too overwhelming. I mean, being a human, it's practically hopeless because we're assaulted from every side, from inside, from outside. It's very difficult. We should have a lot of compassion for everybody, including ourselves, because we're always under assault. Even when you go to sleep, your mind's churning, trying to figure out your identity and how you fit in. If you're in sixth grade, how you're going to wear your pants to school, how they're, I mean, that was my big preoccupation when I was in grammar school. Because Steve Swearingen was the cool kid and he turned up his cuffs at the bottom of his jeans. And I thought, now, if I want to be cool, I have to turn up the cuffs of my jeans at the bottom. But if I do it, then everyone's going to know I'm just copying Steve Swearingen, who, by the way, passed away many years ago. Sorry to say, he was an amazing person and a friend of mine. But endless consternation over that. It was a very difficult prospect being a human being. So we need some place to start where we can move forward. So make a pledge for something that you know you can handle. And that brings me to the next shape because I promised 3 shapes.
There are a couple of
Is that right?
yeah.
Okay, good. Let's see.
So one is Michael. He also mentioned like abracadabra, open sesame. I think it's another magical word.
Open sesame.
Sesame, sorry, open sesame.
Sesame.
And then wedges, pulleys, fulcrums, all are wonderful shapes and tools.
Yeah. I mean, right. Don't get me started on pulleys now. Fantastic. Okay, so let's go to the second shape. May we? That's the shape of stairs. That's an awkward way of putting it. It's not as sleek as saying a wedge. But the staircase, as I mentioned before, thank goodness for the staircase. There's a concept in the practice, in spiritual practice, of taking appropriate steps. This is a concept in Sanskrit called adhikari. Adhikari means what you're fit for at the time. And as an overarching concept, there's a metaphor given in one of the wisdom literatures that birds fly in the sky as high as they are able. They have an adhikari for how high they can go. But the sky's unlimited. So it doesn't really matter exactly how high you can fly. It just matters that you can do it according to your capacity. And this principle, the stair stepping principle, is very important because once we have knowledge and we have a practice, we've started it because we have a wedge, we've made a pledge, say, I'm going to start. Now, how do we have an upward trajectory? It's by the staircase. And if you try to run up the stairs and you're not capable, you could slip and fall. If you don't take steps, you're going to stay at a lower level and your advancement will be distant. I know these sound like very simple concepts, but when simple concepts are applied to the practice of bhakti yoga and you think, what would be my next steps? How will I take a next step? And you take one step at a time, you'll make advancement. One of my favorite examples of steps is in reading books. And I would like to see if I can commiserate with anybody on this Zoom call tonight. Are you ready for commiseration? I hope this works. Have you ever started a book and not finished it? Oh boy, I feel much better now. Thank you for commiserating. Well, that used to happen to me a lot. And well, it just so happens, I'll say incidentally, that one of the practices of bhakti yoga is to read. As I mentioned, reading Bhagavad Gita. There are many other books which are so helpful, so insightful. I'm actually writing a paper about it right now, about how reading these designated bhakti yoga texts help us to overcome the most onerous of debilitating, okay, let's say, onerous and debilitating psychological conditions that keep us stuck in various levels of consciousness that are unsavory. That's my statement. I'm sticking with it. And so it's important to read and be able to hear. However, in reading books, sometimes it seems intimidating because we're busy. What's more, sometimes people say to me, Vaish, I pick up a book, I read a paragraph, I don't remember it. What good is it? It's hard to concentrate and so forth. So my own personal experience came about when I was contemplating how to read all these books because my teacher told me to read all of his books. And then I looked at them and I thought, oh my goodness, there's so many here. How will I ever finish these? So I was listening to this speaker once, and he was talking about how if you have a big task, and I know this sounds like commonsensical and a cliche because you hear it so many times, break it up into smaller parts. But I had an aha moment. I was driving and I couldn't wait to get home because I said, yeah, I can apply that to reading all these books. And when I got home, I ran in my house and I started looking through the books and I said, yep, I can count all the page numbers. And then I could figure out how many I have to read every day in order to finish each one of these books within a given amount of time. Now, the part about steps comes when I actually started doing it and realizing that even if it was a small number I was reading every day, a miracle occurred. And here's how I perceive the miracle. And that is that the size of a page, that is the thinness of a page, I should say, is incalculable. I don't know, maybe you could do it at some laboratory at Northeastern University. They could measure the width, the thinness of a page. But my iPhone doesn't do it, that's for sure. There's no instrument there. It's so small. When I was looking, I was thinking, how could you actually make progress? And I was thinking of that philosopher named Zeno, that Greek fellow, who said you can't actually go anywhere because you got to go halfway before you get to the end. And then he said there's an unlimited number of halfway points before you get to the final point. Therefore, you can never finish. And so I was thinking about that with books. How could you ever finish? But then I looked and I said, okay, if you take steps, measured steps every day, even though the page is so thin you can't even calculate it, somehow or other, when I looked down at the book, I said, I'm almost halfway through. How did that happen? And to me, it's a metaphor for life also. So overwhelming being a human, it's practically not even possible to breathe. We can barely make it through a day. I'll speak for myself. It's so hard. But if we take this approach, you open up a spot for yourself in the universe with your pledge. And then you take this stair step approach and you say, what steps can I take every day? Not such big steps that you'll get exhausted, but I could take tiny steps or ones that I can handle, appropriate steps, let's put it that way. If you just establish that, then you'll be encouraged because humans like openings, humans like clearly designated steps. At least I do. And I'm half human. So there's a way in which, if we remember these shapes, I'm not even to the third one yet, we can be greatly inspired and directed to make advancement. Tortoise and the hare. I heard it when I was a kid. I don't know if it's Aesop's fables or what, but remember the tortoise and the hare? Or the hare? Tortoise and the hare. So the tortoise and the hare, Hare Krishna. So the tortoise and the hare, they had a race. And I'm sorry if I'm botching the story because, it's been a while. Tortoise moves so slowly, but apparently he's steady. And the hare would run way ahead. And maybe this is just cartoon lore, but he'd stop and take a little nap because he thought, I'm so far ahead. He'll never catch up. But the tortoise won. What a triumphant day for the tortoise to win the race. And as kids, I remember my brother and I used to appreciate the tortoise a lot. So if we think like that and we're methodical and we take steps every day, define what the steps are, find out what the best steps are to take. You've opened it up through your pledge, and then take the steps. Miracles happen. Pregnant silence. Good. Shubhanga, please go ahead.
Yeah, sorry if I'm
No,
taking
no, 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 no,
place
no,
again.
no. Your stuff is really good.
Thank you. So I'm back to my original question again because I understand Bhagavad Gita would give me the way to live a life, and I can follow it every moment of my wakefulness to head forward, which I believe is forward, at least in that moment in time. But when you say find a step and take that step, I'm not sure if I can put my question correctly, but if I have to find a step from the intellect that I have gathered, that seems limited because I don't know what the best step is from the limited conditioning that I've gone through. But how do I access what is best? What is the best step I can take without being bound by the limited knowledge that I have?
Okay. I could relate because when I first started reading Bhagavad Gita, I was in high school. I loved the ideas. I thought it was the most enlightening experience I'd ever had, as the knowledge was so profound. And I must admit, I was eclectic at that time because I didn't have a teacher. And so I, after reading Bhagavad Gita, and of course other things I read too, I conceived of a spiritual practice, which was a hodgepodge of various ideas that I had gleaned from various books and teachers. And then, of course, the Bhagavad Gita has this profound knowledge, but how to put it all together and make progress. Which steps should I take? And so I was engaged in many different practices, some of them the extreme. But when I met my teacher, who had started a series of centers to pass down the most beneficial of steps that one can take, as had been passed down for generations through highly qualified gurus and teachers. I didn't even meet my guru for at least 6 months, but I did meet the followers and those who were living in an ashrama, which is specifically for those who want to take the right steps. And I'm not saying you have to move into an ashrama, but I'm just saying, recounting my experience, I refined my steps upon meeting those who were engaged in the process under the guidance of the previous teachers who gave protocol. Here's how to wake up in the morning. Here's when to wake up in the morning. Here's the first orders of business that you should take as your practice. What are the most important activities for those who don't have time to do all of them? For instance, there were 64 primary practices, but then they were condensed, or 5 were selected out of the 64 by previous teachers and said, if you don't have time for 64, here's 5 that will be highly effective. And if you can't do all 5, here's 1 you should do every day. Now, once I had that, I felt that my practice became highly effective because I took it on authority, which everyone does in any practice. You have to have a source of knowledge that you say this is axiomatic and I'm going to take truth, whether you're studying geometry or any kind of science or the metaphysical science as well. And then I was clear about what's most important, how to take the steps. So same answer as the first time: Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. Or you have the Shastra, you're reading it, but then find out, get a guru who says, here's what I recommend. Like you go to a pharmacy and you get bewildered. Even if I go to buy a toothbrush nowadays, I'm bewildered. Besides the fact I don't like they lock them up. Why do they lock up toothbrushes? That's crazy. I mean, it's probably not, but it's still confusing. Paradox of choice, toothpaste, and don't get me started with like razors and shaving and all that kind of stuff. Too many. So I generally ask my toothbrush guru, you know who that is? ChatGPT. Say, what's the best toothbrush? And it comes, okay, I'll tell you in half a second. here's here's the list and here's the best one. And then I say, okay, I know what to do now. I know which one I'm going to buy. And so we have to have that. Otherwise, the approach to spiritual practice, which is a smorgasbord like thing, like there's so many. You know, I was in Taiwan and somebody took me to this Buddhist restaurant. It was all vegan and Pure Land it was called, I think. And they had 1,001 preparations. And I couldn't take it. It was too much choice. Too much choice for me. Until my friend came along and said, here's something you can eat, broccoli, take that. So, you know, we it is a big project. The Vedas are huge. They're huge. You have the four original Vedas, you have all the Upanishads, then you have all these Puranas. And the Puranas, there's there are specific instructions, but some of them are meant for people in certain conditions of life. So, yeah, you need some like a doctor or a lawyer or somebody who comes along and prescribes, say, here, you take this, take two, call me in the morning. Don't self-prescribe. Okay, JM, there's activities happening. The natives are getting restless. Tell me what's happening over there.
Yeah, there are a few in the chat box. First is from Sundar, who says, many times our goals are externally focused, and our value and self-worth comes from what we can achieve that's visible externally. How can we translate our self-worth to internal achievements?
Well, oftentimes, after achieving something that seemed worthwhile, we feel underwhelmed and not fully satisfied. And that hunger for more often drives us to question, you know, what's most important. And there's this sense of intuitiveness that it must start with me and answering certain questions in my life. That's something Krishna talks about in the Bhagavad Gita. What else, JM?
Next is Lisa says, I would love to read your paper, much needed, I believe.
Which paper did I claim I had a paper of some kind?
You're working on a paper about
Oh yeah, it's my final paper. And thanks for reminding me I'm supposed to be working on it right now, actually. This is my way of procrastinating. Just kidding. Okay, anything else?
and Adam just posted his chat with Grok about stairway and starway. He says the classic phrase stairway to heaven draws directly from the Bible's Jacob's ladder, Genesis 28:12. Jacob dreams of a Satan, Hebrews for ladder or stairway ramp, set on earth with its top reaching heaven, angels ascending and descending. This isn't a little staircase, but a bridge between realms, earth to divine heavenly domain. Many ancient cultures have similar motifs.
Yeah, this imagery is really important, and it brings up another, I could say, shape or implement, which is the bridge, which is much is made of that in the Vedas, bridging, how to cross from one region to the next, and that's a whole nother subject. Okay, let me go to the circle, please, because I want to finish, and there's only a few minutes left. So, circle can mean many things. I had a For instance, well, okay, so what it means, and as I'm presenting tonight, is consistency. There's a saying that drops a day wears stone away. You can see that in nature. And the idea of the circle, means to complete things that you start, even if they're small, and do them on a regular basis. Go the full circle, as they say, all the way around. And isn't there something very satisfying about uh, keeping your practice going for a full year, for instance? Because there's a there's a sense cosmically that everything's rotated, one complete rotation in a year. And you're like, okay, I completed that course one whole year, not 9 months, but 12 altogether. And this sense of consistency, I alluded to it earlier in the Sanskrit. In fact, that word comes from Sanskrit, sta, a place to stand, stane stita. Uh, be steady in your practice. And don't give it up because of external circumstances. And even if you think you're doing it imperfectly, keep doing it. Be consistent. There's so much power in consistency, keeping it going. So there's a saying that I picked up in a casual environment. It wasn't a formal statement. Someone just said it, and I said, I'm keeping that. It's keep the transcendental vibration going. And that is, if you're wondering how to make spiritual advancement and you think everything else seems very difficult and convoluted, there's one principle, if you keep consistent with, that you'll be always successful. You'll be able to have presence of mind beyond what you normally have. And that is to keep the transcendental vibration going. So that can be achieved through chanting the mantra. You just keep the mantra going every day. And there are many statements, for instance, nityam bhagavata seva. This word nityam means always. Now that may be too much. So this is an example, Shubhanga Prabhu, that is given the teachers, the ancient gurus who have passed down this knowledge. They say, in consistency, there are statements that say, do it all the time, never stop. They say, good luck doing that when you live in the modern world, right? So they say, that means do it at least once a day. Don't miss a day. That's real consistency. And if you have that consistent approach represented by the circle, that you keep it going, the revolutions are going on, that will lead to profound advancement, even if you start with a tiny little opening, you apply a little pressure, and you take the steps that you can take every day, and you just keep it going. I saw a poster in the Bangkok airport, which I just passed through recently. Although I saw the poster many years ago in that airport. It was about it was from a famous footballer. I think his name is Messi or something like that. Sorry if I make an offense because I don't know much about soccer. He said, I became an overnight success after 17 years. This means he practiced and practiced for 17 years. And then all of a sudden everyone said, you're a star. It's like, you're just a natural. It's like, yeah, right. 17 years worth. So there's these three shapes. You can keep them in mind. Get a little tattoo of the wedge. Get a tattoo wedge. Not a permanent one. Unless, yeah, you can put it here. So get one of a wedge and then get one a stairway and then a circle. You may put it on your arm and you can refer to it anytime. That here's how I can move forward. It's been such a pleasure, and I've been enjoying all the backgrounds, just thinking it's quite a miracle that we're all together here in this room. And my deepest gratitude and thanks to JM, who unassumedly shows up to every one of these programs and makes sure that we're facilitated so we can join this conversation. And all of you who have been so cheery tonight. I've never seen so many hearts and little emojis. I think I'm going to dream in emojis tonight. because there's so many of them. Thanks, Jake, for being here for the first time. Fantastic having you here. Can't wait to meet you in person if that ever happens. I hope it does. And
Thank you.
yeah, thank you. Hope you're staying warm out there. And then there's a way to say goodbye. I see that Nama Chintamani, otherwise known as Nama, is sitting behind some mountains, and it reminded me of our friends in the Himalayas who are yogis who live in caves. When they come out, sometimes looking for tubers and roots to eat, they sometimes see their fellow yogis, and there's a ritual where they put their hands high in the air and they say this phrase, Hari Bol, which means keep the transcendental vibration going. I thought it'd be an appropriate way to say goodbye. Anyway, I'm doing it. Hari Bol.
Haribo!
Everybody.
Oh,
Great to see you.